Hi there, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today titled, Will AI Make Leaders Obsolete? The Future of Leadership in the Age of AI. My name is Megan Marshall. I serve as the Chief Customer Officer and Head of Executive Coaching at Air Consulting. In Air Consulting, we're a global executive coaching and leadership development provider dedicated to helping organizations achieve outperformance. Our topic today is AI, which has captured global attention, particularly since the launch of ChatGPT by OpenAI. And at AIR, our passion really is leadership and understanding what makes leaders successful. What are the skills that they need in this evolving landscape? So today we are thrilled to have with us, honestly, probably two of the most brilliant minds that I know. They can both come on camera here. They actually both happen to be named Michael. We have Dr. Michael Platt and Dr. Michael Jabbour. So going to introduce both of them, then going to talk through kind of our agenda for our time here together today, and then we'll dive right in. So first we have Michael Jabbour. You'll notice MJ beside his name. He goes by MJ. I'll be referring to him as that throughout the webinar. But Michael Jabbour is the Chief Innovation Officer at Microsoft Education, where he leads transformative initiatives to drive innovation in education and medicine. He's a former CTO for the NYC Department of Education and has a strong background in public service, healthcare, agile development, artificial intelligence, and research. Michael is dedicated to enhancing learning experiences and outcomes through cutting-edge solutions. Really excited for all of you to have the opportunity to hear from MJ today. Also joining us is Dr. Michael Platt. AIR is very fortunate to have an academic partnership with the Wharton Neuroscience Initiative, and Michael Platt is the director there. He also is the James S. Reapy University Professor at the University of Pennsylvania. So renowned for his interdisciplinary research, Michael integrates neuroscience with business to enhance decision-making processes and innovation. So his work bridges the gap between brain science and practical applications in various fields, fostering advancements in understanding human behavior and performance. So thank you so much, Michael Platt, for being here. And I'm going to pull up my screen here just to share a little bit in terms of where we're headed today. So where are we headed? First, we're going to look at the state of AI. Where is it now? Where is it going? We could probably spend weeks here, but going to get a real high-level overview from our two panelists. Next, we're going to look at AI versus human leaders. And you might be surprised by some of the findings here. Maybe things that AI can do that we thought only human leaders can do, and then where does it fall short? And then 3, AI and leadership for the future. So with that, without further ado, we'll go ahead and dive right in. And MJ, we're going to start off with you here. I know that you have the opportunity weekly to speak with probably hundreds and thousands of university students. You meet with heads of country. Want to hear from you. What's the latest, briefly, that you are seeing right now in the world of AI?
Sure. Thank you, Megan. And it's a pleasure to be here with you and my friend Michael, also one of the smartest people I know. It's we're at an unusual time where the total landscape is changing across so many fields at once. And so being able to get a broad view actually is very difficult. I think previous to this level of innovation, there were points of time where we could step back easily and say, okay, where are we really trying to go? Can we predict where we're going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years? University 100-year studies. I don't know anyone in the field that can give me a really good prediction of where we're going to be in 5 to 6 years. And so that to me is kind of just level one of where we are. In terms of other areas of industry where you're going to see change are smaller and more efficient models. So being able to do things that on your local machine, even that you would not have been able to do before. So not just in a very large cloud or a large model scenario. The other is the effect on multimodalities and being able to really interact with a model using voice and video and chat and other signals in a way that's very human-like. So that is going to continue to scale and change. And then you're going to see innovation diffuse to the edge, I believe, where it's typically concentrated in central areas like staffing areas. And, for example, you may have a lot of innovation on HR related activities centered in HR. But to give you an example from Microsoft, where we have a process for performance evaluations. Initially, that started out with, yes, people would use copilots to help write the responses to your supervisor and other types of performance feedback. And then we saw supervisors starting to use it to reply back to their subordinates. And then I thought, okay, some HR person is going to come in and tell us, please stop what you're doing. And now we have official documents that show you how to use Copilot to do that process. And so you really have diffusion pushed out to every single person in recent webinars and other releases that I've seen from not just from Microsoft, but from various other sister organizations. Like for the first time, I really thought to myself, a CEO who doesn't know anything about computing can code. Can accomplish things what we used to use code for. But I'll hand it over to Michael for what he's saying.
Well, thanks, MJ and Megan. It's great to be here again with two people I really adore, and MJ. You're one of the smartest people I know, but can you dunk? So that's gives away my age. Yeah, well, I definitely take my cue from you in terms of an understanding of where AI is, but I think anybody who's paying any attention can appreciate that things are happening at a pace no one would have ever anticipated, and the pace itself is accelerating. So advances that even if we imagine they might come years down the road, or that's happening in months, right? And the surprise kind of drop of at least for me, GPT-4o and Gemini, so suddenly endowing these models with vision and the ability to speak, breaking down one of the biggest barriers I think that had existed, which is that you kind of had to type in your questions and received your answers in that kind of textual form, and now, which is not that natural, and certainly not the way probably the vast majority of human beings on the planet interact with each other. And it's not how our brains evolved to interact. We evolved to see and hear and speak to each other. And now you can do that with with a phone, with I mean, that's starting to get really, really close to human interaction. It's that kind of, and I don't even want to call it anthropomorphizing. It's really just sort of building in more and more human qualities and capabilities into these systems that are going to make it much more seamless for us to interact.
Yeah, it kind of ties into maybe what we're learning about how is AI catching up to human leaders. Any thoughts there, Michael Platt?
Well, I think it's surpassing human leaders. If we think about the things that AI can do at a similar level or better than human leaders, first of all, it's speed, right? So it is just lightning fast. If you have to make a decision under duress in a way that if you don't come up with a solution really quickly, people die. Yeah, AI is probably that's going to be a go-to tool, right? AI can take in vast amounts of information, much more than any individual human brain can, sift through that and make an intelligent response, right? And actually make one that is unbiased, for example. So I think it's a great way to the AI isn't necessarily going to make a decision based in anger or based on what you look like necessarily. So I mean, a lot of that has to do with the training data that goes in. So I think that maybe we can think of it as kind of the cold aspects of the sort of so-called rational aspects of ways in which humans aren't so rational in the way we make decisions, that AI is excelling. I mean, surprisingly, we've seen evidence that AI can out innovate human beings, that actually standard tests of creativity, AI can achieve greater basically superhuman capabilities a lot of the time. And now I've been thinking, and I think we all do, that the last kind of humans will make their last stand in terms of emotional intelligence. I still think that's true, sort of a social emotional intelligence, et cetera. But boy, we're seeing some serious catching up, where AI models can, for example, take the perspective of others or pass and even surpass what humans do in terms of like me understanding what you might be thinking or what you might be thinking about what I'm thinking, something that has long been thought to be uniquely human, and as one of the last faculties to develop in our own brains, and AI is doing it.
Wow,
Incredible. Yeah.
that's unbelievable. The things that we, again, spoke about this earlier, but things that we think, oh, well, that's a human, things like empathy, emotional intelligence. And now it's no AI, it probably can do that. MJ, anything else you'd want to share just in terms of where is AI not just catching up to, but superseding human capabilities?
Sure. Just to echo some of the things that Michael had mentioned, I actually, this morning had went into ChatGPT and asked it about this particular question and said, where can humans excel? And it actually mentioned emotional intelligence as the #1 area, but it listed a few others like adaptability, flexibility, and this ethical decision making, which Michael had mentioned. But I pushed back on it on emotional intelligence, like Michael just did, and I said, well. According to the latest studies, I'm not sure that's the area I would be focused on, and it acquiesced. My sense here is that where I haven't seen AI perform really well in is acknowledging its weaknesses and vulnerabilities.
Hmm.
And that's, to me, is one thing that is, at least at this moment, uniquely human. And, in terms of the domains of intelligence, I do feel like you're going to see AI as it becomes more and more intelligent, more and more capable, that it will be able to at least meet or exceed human performance in different areas like creativity, empathy, and other areas. Um, and at some point, including self-reflection. But that's like one dimension, one category of things. The other is metacognition and the ability to think about thinking and to remember where you are. Could that be on the horizon for AI? Sure. But where it is today, we serve as its metacognition. And so when you don't acknowledge your role in interacting with the tool, you also get weaker responses.
Hmm.
Right. So to give you an example from industry, there are three major modes of design you're going to be looking at. Like one is human led, another is human and machine led, and the other is totally machine led. So when you're looking at things like protein folding, if humans had tried to inject themselves in as the leader of that particular process, we would never have been able to accomplish any of the things that we've accomplished today. So we do have to understand like where we are, where our strengths and weaknesses are, and how we work like collectively with AI in more of a co-intelligent approach.
Hmm. That we're a part of kind of helping it and learning together. And we'll talk about that more in terms of what does leadership look like and how do we kind of work alongside AI. MJ, there was something interesting that you shared with me before, and you spoke about this just in terms of AI's evolving rapidly. We don't know where we're headed 5, 6 years from now. And you made some type of analogy in terms of, it's not, taking something and making it better. This is, something a totally new invention for us as kind of a human race. Can you share more about that?
Sure. Yeah. When you're looking at the scaling laws of computing, typically you'll see Moore's law quoted very frequently, and I believe there's an article probably called "The Death of Moore's Law." But the pace of scale was very predictable. I would say we understood the systems, we understood the tools that were being used, how people were using those tools, and even where we gave them the capability to evolve to some degree, there was never anything like what we're experiencing now. When they started to create aspects of AI that could adjust itself, like backpropagation, into the model where it could start to actually learn. So now you're talking about models that can self-improve, that can teach themselves things that we didn't teach them. You've got supervised learning, unsupervised learning. So um, uh, the technologies themselves, Megan, have changed in a way that has impacted their ability to scale and evolve their capabilities.
Hmm.
And so we are seeing emergent, somewhat unpredictable capabilities come from these models, which I think is contributing to their very, very fast-paced scale. So you're going to see a 8 to 10-fold jump in scaling, whether it's day over day, month over month, in terms of how these models are evolving. But as they become more efficient and more accessible, and humans are interacting with them more, you're going to see a different type of learning and capabilities. And there are some prompts that I have used from very early versions of GPT up until now, and just even watching how it's either creating images or responding to questions or dealing with somewhat complex scenarios to process. Its general reasoning capabilities are increasing at a really substantial pace, and there's no reason to think why that pace would not continue as we've seen it. Right. So if you've watched some of the more recent releases from Microsoft and Google and other companies, you're seeing models that can actually tutor someone through a particular problem that takes into consideration the gaps of knowledge that a student has, in a pace and a tone that the student will respond well to. That is really significant. And not only that, but you're seeing the model be able to adjust its tone, its humor, its pitch. There's a lot that it can now do that it's dynamically changing, and you're going to see that continue to scale over time.
Wow. It's just it's hard to wrap my mind around. I mean, I think it's probably hard for anyone because it's just changing and growing and evolving, faster than we could imagine. Michael Platt, anything else that you would want to share, when we talk about AI versus human leaders, what human leaders can do right now or in the future, perhaps, that AI cannot replicate?
Well, again, I don't want to say, never, because I think we just can't imagine where we'll be in even just a year or 2 years or whatnot. But, I think that some things that are pretty compellingly human, like the capability to inspire people to collective action, is, which draws on all the kind of the qualities that we just talked about in terms of connecting with people, and as it turns out, synchronizing with them and synchronizing an entire group of people, which seems to be key to motivating people to act together. So I think that level of inspiration, perhaps, at least at the moment, might be something that, leadership in humans might, at least for some people, right? Not everyone's gifted at that, but let's imagine the most gifted leaders, the most inspiring leaders, those people who really make you, can drive you with a sense of meaning and purpose. I think that, at least for the moment, that's probably a quality that that our current leaders can, try to really lean into, right, and make that a part of who they are. And in fact, if I were a student now, the areas I would want to develop myself in, it would be those, right? So the sort of social skills, verbal skills, the qualities that allow us to get along with other people, but also to inspire them. And I guess the second one would be, and this is just a question for society, really, but it's about responsibility. And one of the best neuroscience studies of leadership, which was done by colleagues and friends in Zurich a couple of years ago, show that independent of the style of leader, you could be the forward style, kind of lead from behind. You could be a real take charge, bombastic leader. That wasn't really what mattered. What really mattered was the degree to which a leader would take responsibility for stakeholders and responsibility for their actions. And that's what true leader is. So how does an AI take responsibility, and how are they held accountable? Right? Do you pull the plug? Do you give it some more prompts, or do you put it in jail? I don't know. I don't know what the answers to those questions are.
And I think MJ, you said this earlier, but that AI can't admit that it's wrong or show vulnerabilities. And
It has a hard time with that. Yeah, you will see it acquiesce from time to time. But understanding but I do think it's part of its conversational predictive nature, that in order to keep the conversation going and continue moving, that it will use vulnerability as a tool as opposed to totally understand what that actually means about like itself, because it has no metacognition, it has no self-awareness, the ability to think about thinking. And so these are things that might emerge in the future, but just as of now, no. And the other thing that Michael mentioned that I want to highlight is that he was referencing the AI side of it, but just to hold the human agency side of this is equally important. And I think that's a part of this nature of now working with this tool is like, where is the tool responsible? Where's the AI responsible? And where is the human responsible? And that human accountability, responsibility, decision-making capability, that independence is going to be definitely a conversation that needs to be had in the community over the next couple of years.
yeah, absolutely. Based on everything that both of you have shared. Let's kind of move now to, AI and leadership for the future. And Michael Platt, you spoke a little bit about synchrony, and I know that you've done a lot of research about the importance of the social brain network and having an interpersonal connection, and how teams achieve neurosynchrony or a state of biological alignment. So what that contributes to performance. So, with AI robots coming soon, what are the implications to human performance in the workplace?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm glad you brought this up. So as we understand it, every human being on this planet is endowed with a social brain network in their heads, which is dedicated to managing our moment-to-moment interactions with other people, as well as our long-term relationships. And it turns out, and this is like a key discovery, I think, of over the last decade, is that when, if you and I or you and MJ are having a conversation, we're getting along, that somehow, and we don't know how, out of this social brain network emerges this brain alignment, physiological alignment, where basically the patterns of activity in my brain will come to resonate with the ones in your brain, which is indicative of sort of we're seeing the world the same way, we're paying attention to the same things, we're feeling similar things, and that's leading us to think similar things. And this can percolate down to our bodies, so that even like our peripheral physiology, like our hearts start to beat together, right? And when this happens, it predicts all kinds of good things, like increased trust and greater cooperation, and better relationships and better communication, and on and on and on. So it seems like it's a key feature of our brain's toolkit, the way that we're wired, right? Our kind of hardware and software that's in there, and it's in there for a very good reason. And I don't think it's going away, right? So it's just sort of a built-in feature of the way that we come together in groups to do things that would be impossible to do on our own. So then that raises a really fascinating and important question of like, well, if you're going to be interacting with an AI or with lots of AIs or robots or whatever, various kinds of autonomous agents, or in mixed groups, let's say, we ought to kind of, again, lean into that knowledge and think about ways in which we can build in or train in something like physiological synchrony. Now, what that means with the computer is not quite clear, because at its heart, it's in silico and operating with a very different physical instantiation than a human being, built out of carbon and other things. And so, but the outward manifestations might be there, right? So I think that so when we have a good relationship with somebody and we get into synchrony, we're going to say similar kinds of things to each other, right? We're going to choose similar words. We're going to tend to the same kinds of information in the environment, and even our movements and our actions will be synchronized. And so we can create more, I think opportunities to build that level of human connection with various kinds of autonomous agents if we can build that in. So, and the ultimate would be a skin on the outside that looks like a human and it displays all of the physiological characteristics of a human, flushing, changes in pupil diameter, which our brains pick up on, and moving together. And then on the inside, kind of what's spoken and how it's received. Those, I believe, will be the kind of the qualities that will allow us to take the next step toward a real true teaming with agents.
Yeah. Yeah. Based on everything you both have shared, it's very clear that leaders are going to need to learn how to work alongside AI and this new technology. And, Michael Platt, would love to start with you. What are the specific skills that leaders need to succeed in a future where they're working alongside AI like this?
That's a great question. I think nimbleness, agility, tolerance for rapid change, but also embrace of that. I think having your people's backs, because we learned that from the latest Microsoft Work Trend Index report that people are doing it. Like even if you're not even if you're not in a top-down way seeding AI into your company, people, it's like 75% of people are using it, and it's empowering them. And the ones who are power users, who wake up with it and go to bed with it, are they're actually achieving greater, not only greater productivity and creativity, which is awesome, but better work-life balance, and stress is going down because a lot of the drudgery, a lot of the things that stress us out at work, right? If you can offload that to AI, it's going to make you, kind of could see opportunity to get happier. So I think so leaders should be open to all of that and embrace that, and not in any way be trying to put a lid on it.
Of being more accepting of it rather than afraid of it and wanting to just, kind of hope it goes away.
Hope it goes away, or try to control the pace and the the embrace and rollout. I just don't think they can do it. So
Right.
just be open about it.
Yeah. MJ, anything else you'd want to share here about the skills leaders need to work alongside AI successfully?
Sure. And just to start by commenting on what Michael had mentioned, it's actually a great survey to check out. The Work Trends Index 2024 was just released. And so to highlight some areas that Michael was just mentioning that are top of mind for me, the numbers that stuck out, right? 78% of people are bringing their own AI to work. It crosses every generation of users, so age independent, age agnostic. Over 92% of people that are using AI say it makes their work more manageable, gives them a creativity boost, helps them focus on what's important, and keeps them motivated. And so when I look at that, I see a very clear trend, especially if you're looking at the last couple of surveys that we've done. You're seeing a trend that is increasingly leaning towards AI adoption at the edge, which I do think signals to us, like in a central way, that we should be finding ways to adopt it in a way that's safe for organizations. Something that's interesting is I know that the AIR community has a lot of HR folks that are connected to it. In previous generations of tools and technology, people would naturally prioritize their productivity over their privacy, like on a personal level. So they would all have free email accounts, free social media accounts, and they would knowingly transfer their information over to another company while they were getting those tools. But this is the first time that I've seen in the last couple of decades where people are willing to trade their organizational privacy for productivity. And so, as you start to look at what a central central skilling looks like, this is really important. And Megan, I know you were highlighting the domain of leaders and skills. I think one natural skill of a leader is to be able to take something that's very chaotic and broad and bring it down to earth for people to actually execute on. And so to me, it feels like leaders could actually do that now, where they could take this topic that is difficult to understand, that is difficult to process. Um, it's difficult to define. And so, like on the leadership side, being able to reduce the chaos down to something that's simple and ingestible is really important. On the user side, another detail from work trends that came out is that over 80% of leaders say that new skills are required, and they are talking about emotional intelligence and dealing with ambiguity, bias, and hallucination detection from AI. And why do they say emotional intelligence? Because this is a very anthropomorphized interaction with the AI. And if you tell it to try harder, it will. Now, why that's occurring could be a whole nother webinar. But I think for a leader to be able to contextualize what all this means and help these organizations move at a slightly more rapid pace in adoption and understanding how to do this safely, that is a really critical role for leaders now. And I can tell you just based on my own colleagues that when ChatGPT came out, many CIOs, CTOs, security officers, innovation officers got that call from the CEO or the president or the chancellor or some other leader in the organization saying, "What have we been doing for the last 6 months?" And everyone was like, so it really took everyone by surprise in terms of its distribution and adoption. And now I think our leadership community is really the best community to be able to not just receive information from all of the technology partners and industry vendors and others, but to become distributors of that information so that they understand how to process it in the culture of an organization and help people acclimate.
MJ, how do you get started on that process? If you have HR and talent leaders here, or just organizational leaders, where do they begin?
Yeah, so in K through 12, they actually have a great model for this called digital citizenship. You teach kids the safe way to use social media and other technologies. I spend a lot of my time on what I would call digital citizenship for adults. But you can certainly go to Microsoft Learn. There are so many organizations that have content at no cost to help reduce the literacy gap that's in an organization. But something else that I've found that really helps is reducing your time to value. So being able to create those low cost, low risk, high impact use cases is critical because you want to go from seeing yourself as an organization that never used AI, didn't understand what AI is, to an organization that uses it, understands it, and does it safely.
Hmm.
And doing that experientially is really critical. The other tool that my team has started to build here at Microsoft is something called a promptathon, because we did see that some of the regular enterprise skilling initiatives were difficult, kind of having that like standard didactic training program. And so finding ways to help people adjust to their own communication styles is really important. And one of the physicians at another university that I was working with in a promptathon for a day, he summed it up at the end of the day and said, "MJ, I finally get it. You're trying to teach us to talk to other humans better so that we can talk to the AI and get better responses." And I was like, finally got it.
It's fantastic. A promptathon. I love it. Anything else, MJ, that you would share around steps organizations can take to help upskill their leaders?
Sure. So you will have the didactic training that is a part of the promptathon, and that experiential part of it, where you can go in and interact is, that's more of like the structured time that you can spend with employees and other affiliates of an organization. Uh, my sense is being able to assign someone a task is that uses AI is actually a really fundamental way to engage people and engage their critical thinking skills. So, when GitHub Copilot, which is our coding tool, came out, which was an advance of really the total release of some of these tools, uh, our leadership told our engineering teams just code one feature in 5 months using AI. And we produced 30% more features than that time period than we've ever done in the past. And so, when you're looking at things like, okay, this person in this organization has the role of creating a job description. creating a policy document, communicating with leadership, setting up meetings, summarizing notes, anything from research to practical applications in the job, to be able to say, can you do this using AI? Can you do it in a way that is faster, possibly higher quality, possibly in a way that's less stressful for you? To me, that's not just something that can come from HR and be supported by HR, but also the leadership personalities inside of an organization. Like, are they prepared to allow people in their organizations to start to experiment, to do so safely, to do so in a way that will create meaning for their organization? And so I think that, if I had to like pick one thing out of a hat, that's what it would be. It would be, help a person, show a person how to use AI, but more importantly, task them with doing something with AI.
Get practice with it. I think that's fantastic. Michael Platt, anything you would share in terms of how organizations need to support their leaders to prepare for the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question about whether we ought to rethink the way that we identify and recruit and bring these leaders up. I mean, we're starting kind of here with status quo with a certain phenotype or limited number of phenotypes and people who are in the roles, but there may be a sea change coming, right? Where we can see those individuals who just organically through who they are and what they've done might emerge as, in fact, better leaders than the leaders we have now. And they may have different qualities than the qualities that we value in leaders right now. And so I think like that may be a place for very visionary, forward-thinking companies and organizations to be open to that. Like maybe it isn't the typical path through an elite university system and an MBA and all that. And there's somebody with a high school degree who happens to be really facile with with AI and can use it to not only their advantage, but to everybody else's advantage. And I think that also resonates with another thing we saw in the Microsoft Work Trends Index, which is that leaders are more and more open to hiring people who may have a less formal education, but have greater facility with AI than perhaps people who are older even and have been through the sort of all of the standard educational systems but maybe has not embraced AI to the same degree. I was sitting here while Michael was describing, maybe you could characterize it as some degree of unevenness across organizations. But if you look at a university, which is where I sit, an elite university, there's incredible unevenness across the university in terms of openness, in terms of embrace, in terms of understanding. There's tremendous misunderstanding from my perspective, and there has been since the beginning of the capabilities, the potential, the pace, and what it could actually do for students. So we see in some schools across the university an open embrace, and it's built into basically every course, and other parts of the university where that's not the case at all, and almost like denial, but that denial isn't getting anybody anywhere.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought these topics up. That's not just about how we upskill leaders. It's also going to change how we select them, how we recruit them, and also how we educate might fundamentally change, and it has already started to. Really, really helpful. We have some great questions here that have been submitted. I want to bring up a few of them in the remaining time we have left. So this first one here says, one key attribute that AI is missing when it comes to leadership is trust. It's clear that you cannot simply just trust the information coming from ChatGPT, and we need to double check the output. Will we ever be able to truly trust AI technologies the way we trust our leaders, even in terms of decision-making? Biases could exist in AI, depending what goes into the system as well. Would either of you want to take this question, this idea around trust in AI?
I could kick it off, and Michael curious what your your thoughts are on this. You've got I guess four major domains that you would want to be looking at in terms of the hallucinations that you would see, which is that where the AI will just simply make up responses based that don't exist in its training, reliability, transparency, and bias. So those are the four major domains. Now, when we went from GPT 3.5 to 4, we saw 50% reduction in hallucinations. So, and then we saw drastic increases in reliability and transparency as well. So to me, that means it built a certain resilience to not saying things that would erode trust or decay it to the point of collapse. Now, bias is something that will slowly decrease over time, and it should. I think when you decrease bias too quickly in a human or a technology, neural network, you're going to have problems, and it will probably increase your hallucinations and not reduce them. And so you'll see a slow decrease in bias and then drastic improvements in other areas. And that is what we're actually seeing as we move from version to version across all of the large language models in the industry right now. In terms of double checking outputs, that's what we had talked about before in terms of new skills. Being able to recognize when something looks like it might be a hallucination, or it might be some, there might be some reason why you shouldn't rely on it. And so, you will see that some tools are better than others at referencing, but checking those references. So, I would say the one advice I would give to folks broadly in an organization is don't assume that this is like genie in the bottle situation, and then you rub it and then magically your thing happens. I think if you have a task that's going to take you 6 hours and you can do it in 5, that's amazing. You will see people that can take a 6-hour task and do it in 6 seconds. If you know how to do that safely, do it. But you want to do things that will continue to build trust and not decay it.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are great answers. I would also almost ask back, like, do we trust our leaders, and should we always trust our human leaders? I mean, we can find leaders to be very compelling and inspiring, who maybe we shouldn't be following. And I think we all have ideas of, our examples that we can draw on there. So those very features I was talking about earlier in terms of like linking up and syncing up and inspiration and all of that, that can be our downfall too, right? So those are the bugs in the system that allow us to be exploited. And like we see this all the time in terms of people trusting and getting taken advantage of due to being too trusting in some sense of other human beings. And so this may be an opportunity, right, to overcome one of those very human limitations.
Really interesting. That's great. Another question here, what do you see as the dilemmas leaders face when utilizing AI to enhance their performance, to create disparities among themselves and others? So maybe I'm utilizing AI in some ways. I'm, kind of getting ahead of my peers. What are the potential challenges in maintaining fairness, ensuring transparency, and how much is too much when leaning on AI? It's a big question.
Michael, do you want to take it and I'll jump in?
Well, I mean, you partially answered that question, I think, in your previous response, Michael. But I think this is a broader question. It's not just about AI. It's with any of the emerging technologies that we've seen, medical technologies, neurotechnology, right? Where essentially you can get an edge in performance, right? And so that you have to then ask yourself, at what cost is that edge in performance coming? And the questioner asks about fairness. There's also about, and that's more broadly, that's like equity, right? That's a big issue, because look, some people are at the bleeding edge of this and are much more aware of what's going on. And there are people in other parts of the world who are not even, probably don't even know this is going on. And so that's already a big gap out of the starting gate. And I think that again, AI is no different from neurotechnology. It's something we teach all the time. It's like that gap has the potential to worsen inequalities, existing inequalities. And it has, there's a potential to overcome them, but there's a potential to make them worse. And that's certainly not an outcome that we would like. And so there has to be some way to address those inequities. And I think also, and I think that this has gotten lost in the conversation maybe since like the rollout 2 years ago, but there was, I think, from the beginnings of thinking about the ways in which this could be transformative even a decade ago, that we needed to build in some way to make this to distribute the benefits across human beings, right? That it can't be a winner take all proposition. That's just that for us as a species, that's just not going to work.
Yeah, and I think to Michael's point, there already was a very large digital divide that many of us have been actively working to close and provide internet devices opportunities to all. The interesting thing about ChatGPT as a tool, especially as it becomes more multimodal, is that even when I was doing research on the health side, smartphone use was ubiquitous, is ubiquitous in populations that are socioeconomically vulnerable. And it has been, for a very, very long time. And so being able to enable a tool that's this powerful on something as small and as affordable as a cell phone, and then your main challenge is getting internet and cell phone wherever you can, that's pretty significant in terms of being able to close the divide and enable people opportunities they didn't traditionally have. One of the things I saw in large educational systems is that when you go into these systems, you typically think, okay, there's a glass ceiling there and they'll be able to push through it. And my experience has been that it's an actual lead ceiling. And so you need to do things that are extraordinary and potentially heroic in order to break that. The other thing that I wonder in terms of like just leadership dilemmas in general, and I had mentioned this to a group of students that I was speaking to, is do they have the grit to make some of these very difficult decisions? Like I believe that Tesla, for example, just recently produced its own report of over 1 billion miles driven. And it came up with zero point 0.3 accidents per million miles driven versus the traditional 1.5. So you're talking about an 80% reduction in accidents based on using any type of like full self-driving technology, like the ones that they created. That is significant. Is the next generation, is this generation going to be able to have the fortitude to be able to push up against the systems that we have today, and regulate and make changes to some societal constructs? I can certainly, just based on my own experience, see a future where it might be a problem, or it should be a problem, for a physician to not have a tool that assists them with diagnosis, not to replace a physician, but to assist them. And so, you're going to see larger systems where it will probably be unethical to hire someone that doesn't have that level of training. And so the question is, what do we do between now and then, David, to your point, to maintain fairness, ensure transparency, understand where we're leaning on AI, where we're not leaning on AI. So when I'm presenting, I typically try to oversight my use of generative AI. Not that everyone has to follow that. But I think, to kind of wrap this particular question, the way that I think about this when I'm looking at it from an educational setting is that, if you ask 1,000 researchers if they use generative AI to build a manuscript, to do research, would you reference your use somehow of generative AI? Most of them would probably say yes, in some form or fashion, they should. If you're you're using GPT to help you write a sympathy note to a friend that lost a parent because you didn't have the words, are you going to sign it Love Chat GPT or Reference 1A? Probably not. Here is the issue. Almost everything in between those two extremes is currently in dispute. And so this is the work of our leaders. right? To be able to take that level of chaos and reduce it to something that we can consume, and to have that grit to make those decisions that we're going to need.
I love that example of the sympathy card and, not citing ChatGPT. That's helpful as an example.
I think one of the most frequent uses of ChatGPT or these systems, but seems to be for writing wedding toasts. Almost everybody I know who's given a wedding toast in the last year and a half finally admitted, yes, I, I use ChatGPT.
And they're good, Mike. I've seen some of them. They're really good.
Really good. It's like, wow, you really captured the couple in an amazing way.
And talk about lowering of stress. Like, how many people are so nervous and stressed by a task like that, that then, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, like this is actually really good. I can use this. I don't have to, be in panic mode for weeks leading up to the wedding to know I'm going to be able to deliver an effective toast. It does help with stress level. Well, there's some other, fantastic questions here, but want to kind of lead us towards wrapping up. And I always like to ask this question at the end of a webinar, really for both of you. What is the one thing, for somebody that's watching this webinar now or recording later in the future, what's the one thing that you would like them to take away? And MJ, let's start with you.
Sure. I think usually when I go to a place and talk about AI, we collaborate on the title of the conversation or the lecture, whatever it may be, and it's usually the future of XYZ, future of medicine, the future of education, the future of da da da. And I actually personally think it's the future of humans and the future of humanity. And so, when you and Michael both were talking about the toast or the wedding vows example, like I view that as a way to help a person that didn't have maybe that particular background to be able to do that writing and to express in that really empathetic way. And it really can express a person's potential if they're using it in a way that's meaningful. And I think over time, not only just on the corporate side of things, but in the public and the regulatory side of things, we're going to make it safer and safer, with every release, with every iteration. And so, if I had one thing that I had to tell another person to do as it relates to AI is be your best self. It's going to be painful. There are going to be moments of ambiguity and frustration, and that is actually good. And that friction will help you grow and make you better at being who you are, and being, the best human that you can be.
Great takeaway. You're going to be in pain, but that's a good thing. And that pressure in life, produces great things. So I think a big takeaway for me today has just been to go and try to do one thing, that normally I would do. Let's see if I can do that with AI and not just kind of use it for the first things that come to mind. Michael Platt, let's go over to you. What's the one thing you want listeners to take away?
Well, that was a good one, although it does make me think of that. It's a pretty famous maxim in working out and in athletics, which is that pain is fear leaving the body. So that pain is, I think, going to be that will help you grow. But I guess I wanted to echo something or return to something that Michael said earlier, which is that, with regard to the promptathons, and really what you're learning to do is to actually converse with human beings in a better, more natural, deeper way and that's going to help you in navigating and engaging with AI in a really, I think productive human-like way. And this has a broader point because right now what we're seeing is the sort of tailspin of us not interacting with each other, which seems to have been accelerated by technology basically over the last decade or more. And so maybe maybe this is an opportunity to kind of rectify that by getting better at interacting with technology, by interacting with your fellow human beings more. And if you do this in the right way, maybe it gives you more time to do more of that, and you have to spend less time doing your job.
Love to wrap up there with just the importance of connecting with other humans, and how I think MJ, you said this in terms of, oh, this entire time you've been teaching me that if we can talk better with each other, we're going to be able to use AI more effectively. So just a wonderful conversation. Thank you both so much for being here and for sharing with us. For those that are watching, or attending today, you will receive a copy of this recording in your inbox. Within the next few days, feel free to share this out with others who might be interested in just the conversation right now around AI and how leaders can be best equipped with the skills that they need to be successful, and how organizations can be thinking through upskilling their leaders. And always go to airconsulting.com for more information, and look forward to connecting again soon. Thanks so much, everyone.